Hey game fans, I'm Steve Nash.
And I'm Antonella Ruffalo, and this is our review of Genji.
In Genji, players are trying to seduce princesses by writing them poems. Inside the box you'll find cards which represent a top half of a poem or bottom half of a poem, 12 princess cards, 4 seasons, 3 fashion cards, colored wooden pawns, and tokens for those colors of each player. The game is played over 4 seasons.
Here's how to set up the game. Each player chooses a color and receives the wooden pawn and tokens of that color. Shuffle all 12 princesses and place them in a circle to form a clock-like shape. Place the season cards in a stack inside the circle. The first season will be spring, then summer, then fall, and finally winter. At random, choose a fashion card for this season and place it under the season stack. Shuffle all the poem cards and deal out 5 to each player. In turn order, players will choose a princess and place their home tile on her along with their wooden pawn. You are now ready to start the game.
At the start of each season, you will choose which direction you want to move your pawn in. It can be clockwise or counterclockwise. At the start of your turn, you will do your movement. During your movement, you can move 1, 2, or 3 spaces in the direction you choose for this season. Once you've moved, you do your action. You can do one of 2 actions. You can study poetry, which means you can discard any number of poem cards to draw that many new ones, or you can try to woo the princess with a poem. If you decide to give her a poem, you can give her a full poem or a half poem. A full poem consists of the top and bottom half of a poem. The cards with a small red stamp are the bottom halves. If you've placed a poem or a half poem, you also place one of your tokens on her. Now the next player does his turn, and so on.
Let me explain the beauty ranking of your poems. Not only are you trying to give poems to princesses, but you're also trying to give her a poem she really loves. To see how good of a ranking your poem has on a princess, you basically check the icons on the poem's cards, and for each icon which shows on the princess, season, fashion card, the poem goes up 1 rank. You'll need to try to make high-ranking poems for 2 reasons. The first reason is to get victory points at the end of the season, and the second reason is to not let other players give the princess a better poem and steal her away from you. If you land on a princess which already has a half poem on her, you can add the other half, which will replace the current token with one of yours. If you land on a princess which has a complete poem, you can try to remove it by playing a top or bottom half card on top of one of those cards. If the card you played makes the poem better by ranking, then you remove those 2 cards, pick up the remaining card, and remove the token on that princess. Doing this also allows you to play a poem on her afterwards.
You can also woo another player's home princess. This will also be called a scandal at the end of the season. Once one of the players has reached his home princess and completes his turn on her, the season ends.
When the season ends, all players bring their wooden marker back to their home princess and points are given out. First, the player who played the highest ranking poem takes that princess's tokens and places it inside an empty game box, and that poem is removed. Then any token on another player's home princess, which is called a scandal, is also placed inside the box, and that poem is removed. And finally, the player with the most tokens remains on the board and takes the current season card as victory points at the end of the game. Now choose a new fashion at random and make sure the next season card is visible. Another season can start with the player who reached home first in the last season. This goes on for 4 seasons. At the end of the game, the tokens inside the box are worth 1 point each, and the season cards you obtained are worth 3 points each. The player with the most points wins the game.
So basically, you're going around trying to woo as many princesses as possible each season and score victory points. The strategy is there, and it has some good player interaction. I personally don't like the poetry theme, but if you're not into poetry, the strategy is still a fun aspect of this game. I mean, you don't have to read the actual poems when you play them, so don't worry. You won't be losing much testosterone playing this game. We did find that 3 points for the season cards was a little much and reduced them to 2 points each as a house rule. The production quality is nice, but for some reason the cards have sparkles on them. So when you first open the box, make sure you're not wearing anything black, unless you want to sparkle and have those Twilight fans after you. It's a great game for people who are into this theme, but if you're into poetry, don't expect all the poems to make sense. The female players enjoyed wooing the princesses more than we did, and the luck of the draw plays a huge part in what you're going to do during your turn. We're giving this game a 7 on 10.